Understanding the context of Matthew 1 and Luke 1 through Jesus and his apostles. Matthew 1:18 describe the origin of Jesus, but this does not necessarily imply an absolute coming into existence of the Son of God as many have insisted, because Paul gives a qualifying sense in Romans 1:3 when he says God's Son came to be of a seed of David according to the flesh, which is in contrast to his having issued forth from the Father before the world was and subsequently coming from beside the Father into the world, John 16:27-28, the same place where he ultimately ascended. The argument that Luke 1:35 implies the absolute coming into existence of the Son of God by asserting that shall be called the Son of God is equivalent to being to be the Son of God is an equivocation fallacy. It completely ignores the fact that to be called can also mean to be recognized as, or to be identified as. Hence, the phrase, will be called the Son of God, does not necessarily imply that he did not already exist as the Son of God prior to his conception. The fallacy in this case is to oppose the belief that the Son of God existed in heaven with the Father before the world was, which is widely supported by various passages in the Bible. Moreover, it creates a misleading straw-man argument wherein those who dispute this errant interpretation are seen to deny Jesus being called the Son of God equates to him being the Son of God. In reality, they are simply and rightly pointing out that being called the Son of God does not necessarily imply an absolute coming into existence. These maneuvers are frequently used to resist the broader context and weight of biblical evidence regarding the heavenly origin of the Son of God and how he came to be a man of a woman. To arrive at a coherent and accurate understanding of this vital aspect of the doctrine of Christ, it is important to consider all relevant passages in their proper context, and not fall into the trap of selectively using certain verses out of context, such as these, to argue that the Son of God could not have existed prior to his birth on earth. People have been going back and forth, like a squirrel on a telephone wire, between Matthew 1 and Luke 1, trying to unravel the origin of the Son of God. But unless they heed the words of the Master himself, who declared, I came forth out of the Father and have come into the world, I am leaving the world again and going to the Father who sent me, indicating that he ascended to where he was before he was sent and came, they'll be stuck in an endless loop like a hamster on a wheel. Ignoring this crucial insight from Jesus and the apostles would be like a cook forgetting the main ingredient in a recipe. It's simply disastrous. In addition, the usage of the phrase, according to the flesh, in Romans 1:3 is comparable to language used in Romans 4:1-9, 3-5 and Galatians 4:23, which reinforces the idea that the phrase is used to distinguish one thing from another. However, the sense of distinction in these verses is different from the one in Romans 1:3, which is specifically referring to the Son of God coming to be of a seed of David according to the flesh. The phrase in Galatians 4:23, for instance, distinguishes between the children of the bondwoman and the children of the free woman in terms of their birth origins, while the phrase in Romans 1:3 distinguishes between Christ's heavenly origin and his earthly origin. The phrase, according to the flesh, in Romans 1:3 refers specifically to the manner in which the Son of God came to be born as a human being, whereas in other instances, such as in Romans 4:1-9, 3-5, the phrase is used to distinguish between physical lineage and spiritual inheritance. It's important to consider the context of each passage to properly understand the meaning of the phrase.